Hello, I'm B.R.E. Brown. Take a seat and tell me what appears to be the problem. I sound more like Professor Dr. Tarquin Danglebury every day. I notice it. I hear it in myself, which is disturbing. Very soon I'll be walking down the street going, Anyway, moving on. Question number 1. Can I use a Sailor King of Pen as an eyedropper-filled pen? No, I wouldn't do it because it has metal rings. I don't know for sure if they are on the inside as well. People love to convert everything to eyedropper-filled pens. I personally don't really understand it. In the case of sailors, you do have a small converter. I understand that. But then use a cartridge. Refill it. I know it's a little bit of trouble, but I don't think it's any less messy than converting a pen to an eyedropper. And if you accidentally unscrew it or it starts to leak, it's a massive amount of ink. If there is metal on the inside of the barrel, you're going to have rust, corrosion, and your ink is going to react. And to me, it wouldn't be worth it. But, who am I? Carry on. Okay. Can I use a Franklin-Christoph Model 45 as an eyedropper-filled pen? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, how about a Parker 51? How about No, the Franklin-Christoph pens are actually different because they are designed to also be used as eyedropper-filled pens. They're just acrylic. There's just acrylic on the inside. There's acrylic on the outside. There's acrylic in the middle. There's acrylic everywhere. You're going to be fine. So if you want to do it, if you absolutely must convert a pen to an eyedropper-filled pen, Franklin-Christoph is a safe bet. By the way, see, that was the professor again. By the way, God. Anyway, so are Edison pens. So you can also get an Edison pen. They're also designed to be used as eyedroppers, unless you get one of the fancy filling systems. But the cartridge converter-filled pens are also designed to be eyedroppers. So that's cool. I mean, if you really want that, then you can do that and you have a massive capacity and everything is happy in the world. Okay, this question is a follow-up to an earlier question I had about why have so many... I'm really paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact wording of that question, but it was something like, why have so many companies cancelled their triple broads and that kind of stuff? And I said, well, I think it's a supply and demand type question. Where there just isn't enough demand for the triple broads or the whatever, and thus they just get discontinued. The follow-up question is, but then why can Japanese manufacturers offer more nib options if it's an issue of demand? I would assume because there is demand. Right? Sailor creates nibs that were unprecedented, or has created nibs that were unprecedented. Think of a King Cobra, think of a King Eagle, think of a Cross Point, think of a Concord nib. These days, there are all kinds of smaller nib manufacturers, private people typically, who make those nibs and then sell them at pen shows, for example. But let's not forget, it was Sailor who invented stacked nibs, at least as far as I know. That's the first stacked nibs I've ever seen. I could be wrong. Maybe in the vintage world something like that was tried before, but something like a cross point nib I saw for the first time on Sailor pens. Then there was a demand for it. And I think even the slightly less extreme nibs that Sailor does, think for example of a zoom nib, which is basically a very broad architect. Or think of something like a Naginata Togi nib, which is also kind of architect, interesting, weird stuff. People like that. But remember that Sailor is a Japanese brand, and some of those nibs are meant to mimic brushes, the strokes of a brush, which is used traditionally in Asian calligraphy. So if you write in Asian characters, that type of nib may be useful for you, and therefore there will be a demand. That would be my shortest answer. I think in the West, I have a cross-point nib. I've got to be honest, to me it mainly has a cool factor. I like it because it's super broad. So broad that it's not necessarily practical for everyday writing, but it's just super awesome, and that's why I have it. So just in me, there was a demand for that nib. And I think there's more demand like that. You you can do artistry with a lot of those Japanese nibs. There is a certain practicality to having a nib that's fine downside down, but is very broad upside down. Sailor made a nib like that. That's practical. You have a broad nib for, say, a signature, and you have a finer nib in the same pen for everyday writing. I think it's very smart, and I can definitely see how there would be demand for that kind of nib, more so than a triple broad, which is just a very, 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 very broad nib. I'm just speculating, right? But I mean, I would think it's something like that, and I think that the big difference is that people in the West, and I use this very broad term on purpose, have discovered Japanese nibs, have discovered the fancy stuff that Sailor did. And I remember the time there was months of wait lists to just get something like a cross point before Mr. Nagahara passed away. So it's just cool. It has a cool factor. It got picked up, and then there was demand. And when there is demand, there should be supply. And I don't know if there was that much demand for a round triple broad nib. Because as you correctly point out, if when would you say, well, double broad, that's acceptable. A triple broad is just one bridge too far, right? So I think it's something like that. But that would just be my idea. Leave further ideas below what you think is going on. Okay. Final question that I have. This was a longer question, but I will summarize it as: should the fountain pen community be more deliberate about boycotting blatant knockoffs? Every time I have discussions about this kind of question, it leads to a strong division in people's opinions. What is a knockoff? What is life? Now, what is a knockoff? In a fountain pen, strictly speaking, a knockoff would be, let's say, a Mont Blanc pen that says Mont Blanc, that has all the features of a Mont Blanc pen, but that is not a Mont Blanc. It is often a Chinese copy, right? This has gone on for a very long time. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying there have been Mont Blanc knockoffs like that, just like there have been Louis Vuitton knockoffs and all kinds of knockoffs for a long time. Strictly speaking, if you, as I understand the term, because I've had my wrist slapped many times now, and correctly so, I think. If I make a pen that looks like a Lamy Safari, it has the faceted barrel of a Lamy Safari, it has the faceted grip section of a Lamy Safari, it has a cap that looks like a Lamy Safari but it may have a slightly different clip, and it does not say Lamy Safari, it never says Safari on it, but sorry, it doesn't say Lamy on it, but it says Jinhao on it, or it says nothing on it, then strictly speaking it's not a knockoff. Then it is a pen that is inspired by ... On that, I do have certain viewpoints. I do think that if you then blatantly copy that Lamy Safari, which most of those pens are, they share most of the features of a Lamy Safari, but they may have a slightly different clip, and now it's something else. I do believe that's wrong, but every time I say that, there are people who say, no, that's not true, because the patent, it's not even patented, or the patent has expired, and we can do whatever we want. Sure, I'm not trying to start a fight here. I'm just saying I find that a little weird. Why not come up with something else as opposed to making what someone else has already made and now just putting your brand name on it? I don't understand it, but it is done. And we're not going to have a discussion about that. It is done all the time. It started with Mont Blancs, and then there were Safaris, and then there were Kavekos, maybe Kavekos and then Safaris. I forget the exact order of things, but there simply are knockoffs, and they're coming there. You just look on eBay, and you will find many, 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 many of them. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to stray from the, I think, correct definition of knockoff, and I'm going to incorporate saying, okay, here we have a pen. I don't happen to have one at hand, but here I have a Chinese copy. This is basically a Safari. It even fits Safari nibs, but it has a slightly different clip, and it says Jinhao, so now it is not a Lamy Safari knockoff, but it is pretty much entirely a copy of the Safari. Should the pen community boycott that? I think there are two viewpoints. One viewpoint is, yes, it should, because it is unethical to copy other people's work, period. Then there is also the argument, and I've raised this in videos before, so I'll try to be brief, which is always a challenge for me. If you know, you know. There is the other viewpoint, which is, okay, but now I want to try a Lamy Safari, but I don't have $30, but I do have $10, and I can get something that has the same section as a Safari, that has the same barrel as a Safari, that has largely the same cap as a Safari. It can even fit actual Safari nibs, and it's $10. I can spend $10, and if I really, really like the Safari, I can end up saving some money, and I will purchase a $30 Safari. I'm not making fun. I'm not belittling anyone. I'm just saying this could happen. You may not have that money. It could be the same thing with a Mont Blanc. I want to try out a Mont Blanc 146, but I can't afford a Mont Blanc 146, but I can afford the $100 copy, or the $50 copy, or the whatever. There are people, and there will be people, who say, if Jinhao, let's say Jinhao, I'm not trying to pick on that brand. I've had some Jinhaos that I really liked. Some of my best friends are Jinhaos. If Jinhao can do it for an MSRP of $5, why can Lamy not do it for $5? That's an argument that comes up a lot. Right? Where does the extra $25 come from? I don't know. Where's the extra $100 come from if you buy a brand name shirt versus a no brand shirt? Well, there's the material, there's the manufacturing, there's certain quality things, but there's also the fact that there is a logo on that product that you purchase, and you pay a little bit for that. Sometimes you pay quite a lot for that. It's the way it is. None of this was actually the question. This was just my theoretical preamble of, this is the point I'm trying to make. These are the viewpoints that we have. I try to be balanced in these videos because I think it's good to try to be balanced in a world where opinions are now facts. I think trying to be balanced is a good thing. My opinion is not a fact. It's just an opinion. And my opinion is that the pen world can be very stationary. Okay, but I do think that the pen world, in all honesty, can be quite accepting of things. I've said this in the past. Nobody would accept a car that you purchase and the engine is so poorly constructed that it just barely runs. Like, you can only say go 10 kilometers an hour with it. Nobody would accept that. But when it comes to fountain pens, we gladly accept a nib that doesn't write. I bought a $500 pen, a $1,000 pen, the nib doesn't write. That's okay, I'll send it to a nibmeister. And some people will exchange it. But it's an important point. I think there is nothing wrong with boycotting blatant copies. But the reality is, for some people, those blatant copies fill a niche. They may not be able to purchase the real product, but they can buy that knockoff product and it will make them happy. Is that how it should be? I don't know. If it makes people happy, nobody gets hurt. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't know if it's always a good thing. I think ideally we would live in a world that does not have violations of copyrights, violations of patents, would not have any of that stuff. But ideally, we would also live in a world where there is peace, where people all respect each other, where there is no pandemic, and we don't live in that world. So at the end of the day, and this is a really, I don't want to end with a sort of gratuit statement, but at the end of the day, you have to make up your own mind. Is it a problem that your $1,000 pen doesn't write? In my mind, it's a pretty big problem. Send it back. But many of us accept it. I myself have accepted that kind of scenario and just sent something off to a nibmeister. And then my rationalization was, yeah, but now the pen truly writes the way I want it to write. Okay. Well, maybe a $600 Mont Blanc is not within your financial means, but a $50 knockoff is, and you still get the feeling that you use a Mont Blanc. You know it's not a real Mont Blanc, but it makes you happy because it's like you have a Mont Blanc. In that case, I suppose there's nothing wrong with it, as long as everybody knows. The problem arises when you are sold something believing it's a genuine a genuine product, but in reality it's a fake. Then you have a problem, because then you've been ripped off, and that's a shame. As to the copying, I would rather see that companies would invest their time and energy and effort and money into coming up with something new. Think of some of the pens Jinhao has come up with. I think are great pens, fun-looking pens, fun to play with, fun to write with. Think of the Jinhao shark pens, cute pens. I mean, I think it's really, really neat. Wouldn't it be nicer to have that than try to create your own Lamy Safari? But again, I suppose that copied Lamy Safari fills a certain niche. And at the end of the day, it's easy for me to say, oh, just design your own pen. Right? I mean, I'm just a dude. I'm not a pen company. These are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. I hope this was useful. I hope that has answered some of your questions. And I will gladly see you again next time. Any other questions you have, leave them below. I try to answer them as soon as I can. And that's it. Just keep doing that, please. It helps me out. I appreciate it. And I really hope that I'm never mean. I never try to be mean. Anyway, Merry Christmas.